Oh, what's happened? Welcome back to the YouTube. There's something I didn't think I'd say again. Don't know why I just felt the need to check my watch there, but here we are. Yeah, welcome back to the YouTube. It's been time, lads. Time. I feel like the last time I had a YouTube video out was last August, maybe. So, a quick synopsis, I suppose, of the last 10 months. Um, Obviously, come the end of August, ended up pulling the prep last time. Unforeseen circumstances, etc., that kind of led to me, what it would have been in the end was looking like a bag of dicks no matter what, on stage through no fault of my own or anyone else's. I think it was just a case of having to suck the absolute life out of that to make it where we needed to be. But I know it wouldn't have been the best of me, and I think that's a big thing for me as well, is like, I don't want to do something unless I know I'm going to be as good as I possibly can. And that's in no way me being like, this year I'm going to go out and win shows and fight for a pro card or something ridiculous like that. Not even anywhere in the realm of my intentions for this year. It is just to be the best I possibly can. And I know over the last 10 months, I've done absolutely everything I possibly can to make sure of that. I've never made so much progress in my entire life over the last 10 months. And the biggest thing I think that was the difference was realizing, you can always do more. As much as I thought I was doing before that, it's like, it was life around bodybuilding for the last 10 months, and obviously will continue to be throughout this prep. But there's this thing of like finding balance within X, Y, and Z, and it's like, okay, if that's contuitive to your goal, fine, but it's not like, I'm looking for a room to go out drinking and fucking go and have meals out and shit like that. Yes, I had off-plan meals and stuff, but it was all very, very kind of pedantically planned and like didn't rip the arse out of it every weekend. It was just every bit of my single day that I could possibly get towards being a bodybuilder was aimed towards being a bodybuilder. That kind of came out in a roundabout way, but you understand what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I think that's been the biggest thing over the last 10 months, is actually just wholeheartedly, fully and entirely acting like a bodybuilder. That is literally it. Everything else aside, you talk about anabolics and things like that, but that is like the one thing I hate about that topic, when people are like, it's steroids, whatever like that. It's, Ryan did a post on it the other day, steroids, look, whatever, anything like that. That's a big thing where I'm like, you can't just take these things and sit on the couch. Like you still have to work. It's called assistance. It's not doing the work for you. It's not some magic pill that's going to fix it for you. And I think that's a big thing as well. That's a genuine misconception about it. It's cheating, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's not that. It's just relevant to what I need to get done in a scenario. It's aimed towards my goals. I want to be a good bodybuilder, so that's what it's going to take. But if anything, my work rate has fucking doubled over the last 10 months, since obviously, well, almost a year now since going on, but has pretty much doubled. And that is not like that's not a factor of taking anabolics. That's not raised my work rate. It's just my want to actually do the work has increased, because now I look at it like absolutely everything is in my favor. So why wouldn't I give this my 120 fucking percent all every single day? And that's how it's led to me. If I had to guess in a ballpark range, there's at least 15 pounds, if not more, of tissue gone onto my frame in the last year. I could be way off there, to be honest with you. It's very hard to gauge, obviously, because you're coming from two completely different scenarios. Fully natural athlete to a year later, like being assisted. But I think it's hard to gauge properly, but if I had to guess, I would say somewhere about 15 pounds of tissue. So I can't really complain. But anyway, on the agenda today, we're actually going down for a in-person check-in with Ryan, so you'll see a couple of clips of that. Very, very fortunate to be able to do that at the minute. Obviously, just given the situation that we're in, we all live in the same building. This is the fucking cool thing about it as well. We are all living in the same building. We're all prepping together. Like it's such a community feel about it, but it's like everyone holding each other accountable. Like there's absolutely zero fucking room to slip here. And that's what I love about this, And I think in general, it's not just the building. Like there's 12, 13 of us in Manchester, all just being bodybuilders, like gearing everything we do towards being bodybuilders. And we're all just there to fucking support each other and whatever like that. And it's unreal to have it, Like I don't think there's anywhere like this, be it the UK, Ireland, anything. I don't think anywhere else has anything like this at the minute. And I'm extremely, extremely grateful to be able to be in this position as well. you know, like it's, as I said, the in-person check-ins make a massive difference. Pictures tell a thousand words, as to say, but it's so much more kind of direct when it's in person in front of you. Like there's no hiding there, and things are moving very, very well at the minute. So I'm very, very happy with that. But yeah, down for an in-person check-in. Legs on the cards today. What better way to bring back to YouTube than when a leg day? I will most likely just record it and do a voiceover or something, rather than carrying mics around, having to talk in between sets, because it is quite a grueling session and the poor brain does be a little bit fried after it as well. But yeah, that will probably be the plan of action for today. So yeah, we will crack on with the day, and I'll probably catch up with this at maybe pre-workout, maybe on the way to the gym. Who knows?
Give this a bit more rotation. So like rotate into it and be like smidge more. Yeah, yeah. And then with that back arm, you're like, you are pushing that pec. Yeah. Not even like across your body, because then you'll cover here, right? So your fist is only ever pointing at me, but never like around. Yeah. Driving this into here, like your bicep pec. Yeah. Yeah. Get that pec in front out. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Way better. Way better. And then straighten the legs. Yeah. That's good, man. I'd say for you, since your back is so big, you can put your elbows up a bit more. Yeah. And then stick your chest up so you get this rotation here. Okay. And then you'll pack the lats down. So elbows up a little bit more. And then chest up. Like chest up, up, up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good. And the same with this side. Tapping your back in front out, get it out. And then straighten those legs. Yeah. I'd say with your right arm here, like your front facing arm, you could, since your arms are big enough, you don't have to go like this or anything, you can just go like almost a straight arm. Yeah. And then in. So you're not like as in almost pulling myself. Yeah, you're like back around. Because you're rotating as well. Yeah. And then you want this arm to be here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, way better, man. So much more width then through the top.
Now, I was tying around with this one over the last couple of days, as opposed to not pulling it in so much and just
trying. So, yeah, that's good, man. Because you're gonna have like, are you training abs right now?
Yeah, yeah. I'm daily. Like
if you like develop your abs and obviously get leaner, even when you're pulling that half vacuum, you don't need to pull the full vacuum. Yeah. You're just gonna have it. It's gonna be in and you're gonna be bam, bam, bam.
Because when I'm not sucking in fully, what I find is it keeps it more. But it keeps it more stacked looking. Yeah. It actually makes my waist look a little bit smaller.
What you can do, right, is pull it up like half vacuum, what I call it, and then actually put your glutes through. Because what I find is the adductors, you know, if your glutes out, because when you bring chest up, you're like, right, extend the spine. Yeah, yeah. So you're like arched back. But if you go pelvis through, like glutes through, you get the adductors, and then you're coming up like this. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, way more adductor. That's it. Yep. Way better. That was like the biggest, like
the biggest one.
Like
but I'll do that first.
Yeah, reset. Like pull reset. That through. Yeah. I'll show you this in a picture.
Fucking
way better.
Yeah. Way better. But this is what I'm saying as well, because when I pull a full vacuum, I don't know whether it's just like, obviously you're so compacted that it kind of pulls my lats in a little bit too much.
I notice in my own poses, sometimes when I hit the vacuum and I try and like pull it too much almost, I'm like,
because I'm like,
look how deep it is.
And my lats look smaller almost when I do it like that. Yeah. So I think
that's well, obviously when you're barefoot, you can like so you're like, you'll just slide. exhale like through the diaphragm, like pack the lats down a little bit. Yeah. Very good.
Okay, so second attempt at the voiceover for this leg day, because the first time was with the camera and it just went all over the shop. But anyway, like I had mentioned earlier on in the video, just doing a voiceover purely for the fact that it is quite a grueling session is legs, and the poor brain function does not be great by the end of it, so trying to give off any value would probably come out somewhat skewed, just through my own fault. But anyway, kicking things off with lying hamstring curls here. 2 sets here, one top set, one back off, as is per usual. With the lying hamstring curl, this Atlantis one, it is quite heavy in the short as opposed to the seated hamstring curl, the seated Atlantis that is, where it drops off quite a lot in the short position. So while I'm fresh, first movement of the session rather, getting the absolute most that I possibly can out of the hamstrings here. Really like this lying hamstring curl though, it suits me quite well. So some basic cues as always with hams: driving my quads into the pad just to drive tension across the hamstring itself, doing as much as is humanly possible to keep my hips down, but of course you are going to get some pelvic movement within a hamstring curl regardless, just minimizing that as much as possible is obviously the goal. I am using wrist straps here as well to pull myself in a little bit more. Does it have a massive difference? Probably not, but I like it. Keeps me more stable as well within the movement. Moving on then, pendulum, second movement of the session. Again, something I used to do in the past was like, you know, it used to be adductors, lying ham, leg extension, then squat pattern. What I've been doing for the last couple of months is having this second in the session purely to prioritize my output in the pattern itself. I need more quad. Okay, I need a lot more of everything, but I need more legs, big time. Now they have improved over the last couple of months for sure, but I think in my own eyes they're still disproportionate to where they need to be, as is everything else, but you know, what have you. In this one here, you'll see that I have a band as a counterbalance, and I also have a band at the top, so you're probably looking at that saying, why the hell has he got a seesaw going? So with the band as a counterbalance as opposed to just some plates, what we're getting is a pretty consistent or almost linear drop off as we move through the movement, whereas opposed to just as you pass that point where the load kicks in, as in the counterbalance kicks in at the bottom, it's a pretty dramatic drop off. So I like the idea that it's a more consistent drop off here. It just feels a lot smoother as well. With regards to the band at the top, once we pass that mid-range, it becomes infinitely easier in a pendulum pattern. Why I am adding the band is to basically give myself less time to rest and making the movement more difficult for myself. If you can make it more difficult and have to use less load, why wouldn't you? That is my own opinion towards anything got to do with training, not just like leg training or anything like that. Obviously minimizing load exposure as much as possible, but still using relative load here. The band does take a bit more than just the plates, so I am using considerably more load than the previous week's session. I believe I was up about 10 kilos here, but down reps, so it was still relatively difficult. And yeah, really big fan of the pendulum. I've been running that now for the last couple of months and just feel like I get a lot out of it. So moving on then, JP hip press next. You'll see Keen's ass here because he doesn't realize the camera's recording. So what I actually did was hit a rep, then I had to tell him. So you'll see it now. So here we go, rep 1, and there's me calling him. Camera, and then, oh bollocks, there's a camera. So there you go. So yeah, hip press here. What I'm also using that you can't really see here is my wrist straps again, just to pull myself into the seat. The demand systemically from this movement is phenomenal. Okay, you're purely and utterly locked in here when you have the straps on. And all you can do is just force that output through the quad, through the leg itself. It genuinely blows the head off me, but it's a fantastic movement. There's no point where this is easy because of where the load is starting is quite far out in front of us, and it also just keeps getting further and further away. So yeah, really nice press stop. Really enjoy this one. You'll see I also have a blue pad under my hips here, so what that is doing is obviously just me being the longer legged individual is forcing me to shift a bit more load onto the quad by allowing me to get a bit more knee flexion, just taking my hips out of it, taking that rounding out of it, because if I was lower it would force me into a rounded position, and we are going to drive through the hip, through the glute more so then as well. There is going to be some degree of glute in that movement regardless. We are starting at somewhat of a downward pressing pattern with our feet, but again, minimizing that as much as possible is the goal. Onto leg extensions then after this. So you'll see I have obviously quite a cluster of quads all together in this session, purely because I want more quad. That is literally it. If you want more of something, prioritize it more in the session. Okay, big cluster of quads all together, just absolutely smashing them, and I am absolutely smoked by the time this leg extension is done. 3 sets here, a top set and 2 back offs, the third one having a rest pause at the end. What I'm doing here is loading this pretty much 60% on the top, 40% in the middle. I was purely loading this at the top, but what I found the point was I was getting more load than I could potentially handle in my own eyes, and what it ended up doing was kicking the weight up instead of dragging it up with my quad, which is the goal here in any leg leg extension. We want to use it to facilitate as much quad use as possible. Okay, it is an isolation movement at the end of the day. We're not trying to use anything and everything to move the load. You'll see here I am pretty much just in a straight line when it comes to sitting into the leg extension. I try and keep my hips, my knees, my ankles all pretty much stacked. The angle that your foot is at, the angle that your leg is at, is not going to bias any more quad than is purely just getting into the movement and doing the movement correctly. Okay, so don't get sucked into that idea that this angle hits this part of the quad, this angle hits that part of the quad, etc, etc. Just do the movement correctly, align your joints, and allow the force to travel appropriately through the muscle. What I'm also using again that you can't see is my wrist straps here. Bit of a no-brainer if you ask me. What do you want to do when you're struggling? Let your hips come up and let that facilitate a bit more movement as well. You'll see me taking my rest pause here. So even after these, this is a third set now, minimal load at this point, but I am absolutely smoked, and you'll see I only get a handful more here, but I really enjoy this. It's just a really good way to absolutely fry the quads, finish them off entirely at the end of the session, and make sure there's absolutely nothing left in the tank. But yeah, facials to facilitate, or to portray rather, the excruciating pain. You do get like a dog leg shake when you're done on a leg extension. Can't explain it, it's just involuntary action. You'll probably have experienced it yourself, but it's just, yeah, you know you're done. So seated ham curl then, second to last movement here. I haven't got calves in this anymore. I am training calves now on both of my push days, just for a bit more frequency, because I was only doing them once a week. But again, just for a bit more frequency, and you know, you can never have big enough calves at the end of the day, even though mine still aren't growing. But seated ham curl here, again, same concept as the lying, driving my quad into the pad to allow myself to drive tension across the hamstring. My hips are back, my chest is pretty much down, so I'm not arching in my upper back or my lower back for that matter. I'm just firmly pressed into the seat. You can see me here pushing against the pad to keep myself locked in and moving purely through the hamstring. Okay, fantastic movement for a hamstring. Seated ham curl, any sort of seated ham curl. Obviously there is some that are just not great, but your general generic seated ham curl that has this kind of setup with the pad above the knee as opposed to the ones that you see below the knee, which I call shin breakers. Really nice movement for hamstrings. And again, if you can find one that like this, it drops off in that shortened position, so perfectly placed towards the end of the session when I am going to be fatigued, allowing me to just exhaust that lengthened and get the absolute most out of the movement as well. But this is my rest pause set here, so this is the paused part of the set as such, but it is a much more extended set. I do take quite a heavy load reduction for the drop, or for the second portion of the set here, just so I can keep it in the higher rep range, keep a bit more volume across the hamstring. I am currently training hamstrings on 2 separate days in the week, but again, like anything else, I can't have enough hamstring. I can always do with a bit more. So yeah, that is the way I have that running. Again, like drop sets, rest pauses, things like that, they are applicable within certain scenarios, obviously not being ridiculous with them. Using them in isolation movements and things like that I think is more doable than, you know, I'm not doing a rest pause on a pendulum squat. Okay, it's just being sensible with things like that. So last movement then, adductor. You'll see here I've left my little technique in at the start. This is how I get into the adductor, and you will see me getting out of the adductor as well, because I do see a lot of people struggle, especially with the prime one. The prime one is quite difficult to get into and get out of, and it will rip your hip off if you're not careful doing either. But that is my little technique. So I kind of stand up, widen the pad, then sit down into it, close it together with my hands, and I'm ready to go from there. One other thing with the adductor, and again I see it all the time, is people like overextending themselves with the arms just to reach a range that they simply don't have. It's like anything, okay? If you were doing a press, if you can't get below a certain point on a press without load, then you don't need to be working in that range, okay? You shouldn't be working in that range, because it's probably going to lead to an injury. Don't get me wrong, you can always improve your range, work on your mobility, but not forcing something inside a movement, okay? Mobility is to be done outside of that to help improve it and to help to facilitate more range, not simply placing a ton of load on yourself just to access a range you don't have. And again, like I said, it's going to lead to an injury, especially on something like an adductor. So yeah, you'll see me getting out of the adductor there. Same technique, just in reverse. Again, another rest pause here. So this is the rest pause portion of the set, taking quite a load reduction again in the second portion, just to keep the volume a bit higher. Likewise, hitting adductors twice a week, but it is one of those things that's heavily neglected by a lot of people. It does add thickness to the legs no matter what. If you have big massive quads and no adductors, you still have basically no legs. If you can see between your legs, it's not a great look, especially from obviously a bodybuilding perspective. Like, you want to have as much muscle as possible in every area, so do not neglect them. I am placing these at the end of the session, as I mentioned earlier, about directing most of my output towards my quad work and my squat pattern, etc. On my pull day, they are the second movement in my session. Apologies, third movement in my session. So that's where I can prioritise them a bit more. Needs, must, and such, but they are still getting adequate stimulus across the week. So you'll see here a couple of post-workout shapes. I actually have a quad pump in this, which is, unforeseen for me, or unheard of really for me. But yeah, very happy with how things are moving. Currently 16 weeks out to the day in this. We're now actually just under 16, so 16 and 5 as I record this. But yeah, very, very happy with how things are moving. Definitely in line. I wouldn't say I'm ahead by any means, but definitely in line, and potentially even, at the rate we're moving. 5 pounds pulled off in the week prior from very small changes. So if we wanted to drive it on, we absolutely could, but we're moving at a very good pace now. And obviously, it goes without saying, I would like to be ready somewhat early. I don't want to be digging the arse out of it 2 weeks out to try and reach condition. I want to be in condition in plenty of time, so there's a bit more of a, not relaxed approach, but a bit more wiggle room as you move closer to show. And I think it will just allow me to be obviously less stressed for one, but just present a much better version, a much better package of myself, than potentially, like I say, sucking it down for 2 weeks out scenario. Now again, if it's needed to be done, it needs to be done, but even still. So yeah, that is going to wrap the leg day up, and that should lead on to the outro. Okay, so we are back post legs. Turbo mangled, head melted, but a good session nonetheless. Very, very good session today. I probably will have a voiceover done for it, rather than, I literally didn't talk during the session. But I think I will probably do a session at some stage where it's like that, but legs is just one of those ones, mentally more so than anything else, it's just so demanding. So I think I'd be more stumbling my words than anything else if I tried to talk during the session. But a very good session, as I said, nonetheless. So something, I suppose, addressing the kind of what are the plans for competing this year. Kind of got a bit sidetracked in the intro this morning. I think I completely forgot to mention it. But the current plan of action, as of today, we are exactly 16 weeks out from the MK Classic on the 2nd of September. And then we are 18 weeks out, 18 weeks and 1 day out from PCA Ireland on the 17th of September, which is 2 weeks later. But they are the two shows that I have lined up at the minute. More than enough for me, this year especially. I think it's going to be a case of, obviously, coming back to the idea of being my best self, yes, but I don't want to just dip my toe in the water. And I think as well with the MK Classic, it's going to be one of the biggest draws of the year for quality of competitors. So what better way to see exactly where I stand and what I need to do to be a legitimately competitive individual as a bodybuilder, than actually do like a high-ranking, high-tier show like that. And then PCA Ireland, obviously it would suit well to go home, do PCA Ireland, and then be at home for a couple of days, be with family, be a normal person, whatever like that. And again, I think it'll just be good
good to get across both federations, you know, different sort of perspective on how things run and stuff like that, especially as a first time competitor. But there are the current plans. Checking shots this morning, extremely happy. You would have seen a clip of that, checking them with Ryan, but extremely happy with the shots. A total of 5 pounds pulled off across this week from the start of the week, which is wild, and it's like the smallest adjustment we've made all prep so far. It was 25 carb on a training day, 50 carb on a non-training day, and an extra 5 minutes cardio a day, and shit has just started moving fast, so I will not complain at all. But anyway, yeah, that is the current plan of action. Very happy with checking shots. Waist has done a runner to a degree this week, which is pretty wild to see, but very happy with how things are looking condition wise. I would say I'm probably close to on par where I was at 11 weeks out last year, which isn't saying a whole lot really, considering like it was still a long way to go at 11 weeks out, but I'm very hopeful now at 16 that things are moving extremely positively. Training performance is fantastic, food is still in a good spot, output is, you know, it's not high by any means, and everything else around it is just falling into place very nicely, and just enjoying every minute of the process. And I think that's a big thing as well, is like, you know, I see this now so much, and I say it even as a first time competitor, but I think if you want to do something like this, you know, it is a choice at the end of the day. And I see people who, like, from the word go, they're pissing and moaning about doing cardio and less food and things like this, and every time something changes they just want like to complain about it basically. And I think the biggest thing to consider there is like, nobody's forcing you to do this, okay? Nobody's forcing me to do this. And it's this idea that it'll all be worth it when. If it's not worth it while you're doing it, then it's never going to be worth it, okay? If you're suffering from the word go and it's like a chore to you, then why bother? Do you know what I mean? And that's not like a way of saying, you know, you're wasting your time, what the fuck is the point, like, etc. But that's, I suppose it is in a roundabout way what I'm saying. Why would you do something if all you're going to do is piss and moan about it? It's supposed to be hard, you know, like this is not an easy thing to do. And I will never understand, again, even from a first-time competitor's perspective, I'm loving every single second of this, okay? I'm seeing my body change pretty much on a weekly basis. My training performance is still good. I enjoy getting up and doing my cardio. I enjoy eating my meals, everything, okay? It's like the enjoyment of the process versus thinking about just get to stage, okay? I don't think there's a merit in that. And again, from a first-time competitor's perspective, obviously I have very little perspective to go on, but even still, it's something I see more and more commonly now, is like people just moaning from the word go. It's like, if you don't want to do it, don't fucking do it. But anyway, that's my little rant wrapped up, and that is kind of going to wrap up the video here. Plan of action for the rest of the day, very little. I'm surprised I got through this outro as well spoken as I did. Brain does be pretty mangled post legs, so I've 2 meals left to eat. I'm going to shower, I'll probably sauna later. I will try and include something like that in a video at some point, and I will try and get a couple more videos on a more regular basis too. Might go with like a push session this week, and then maybe a pull the week after. But yeah, that is going to wrap this one up. Very excited, very just looking forward to everything now. Like I said, thoroughly enjoying the process, and hopefully I will stay on top of YouTube videos. Because I think it's good to get an insight from, especially like a first-time competitor's perspective, into the process. You know, myself and Keen will both be first-time competitors this year, and so is actually Joe. But again, it's like just getting different views on different people's journeys, I think is cool, and having a couple of first-timers who like, this is something you may want to do down the line, so getting an insight into what's involved and how we move through the process and things like that, I think would be very cool. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up. So like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube shit or whatever like that, and I will chat to you in the next one.